Welcome to the Maria Liberati Show, where food meets art, travel, and life. So what does food mean to you? My special guest this week is Carol Baum. She is a creative producer and an author, and she has worked with some of the top names in Hollywood, including Dolly Parton. And she's going to share with us tips on working in Hollywood, being a creative producer, a writer. But Carol also loves to entertain, so she's going to share with us some tips on throwing a big party in Hollywood and her favorite recipes as well. So stay with me.
And today, my special guest is Carol Baum. And Carol is an author, a creative producer, and she has such an interesting career. But she's also going to talk to us a little bit about entertaining and cooking. So for my audience that loves to, hear about cooking and entertaining, stay tuned. We're going to get into that also. But Carol has such a fascinating career. Carol, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. This book is a new thing for me. I've never written a book before. So the promotion part is sort of taking over my life. You're my first interview.
I'm honored. Really. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm excited for the process. The book's not going to be published until October, but everything in publishing, they need months and months to prepare for it.
Yes, to prepare. Anyway, tell us the title of the book.
The book is called Creative Producing. And what that means is there are two kinds of, we'll get right into it. There are two kinds of producers. There are many kinds of producers, but the creative producer, which is what I am, is the person who comes up with the idea, who finds the book, who creates the material, who works with the writer from every step, from the very, very, very beginning of inception all the way through. That's the creative producer. The other main producer is called the line producer, and that person is hired when the picture is going forward, and he's the person, he or she or they, are the people who do the budget, make sure that people show up on time. It's very nuts and bolts. It's the opposite of what I do. I am not a nuts and bolts person. I'm an organized person, but it's very different. The creative means what you think it means. We create an idea and try to figure out how to put it together.
That's really very interesting. So tell us a little bit, because you have such an interesting background of how you got into what being a creative producer. Tell us a little bit about that and some of the people.
Well, that's what the book is about. I start the book at the beginning because I didn't plan on a Hollywood career. I graduated NYU. And what happens when you graduate college and you're living in New York, which I was, you try to get a job in the arts. And what that means is a magazine, a publishing company. There were no movie companies, so that wasn't even on the table. But a lot of the girls who were graduating when I did, we hit the ground running to publishing. And my first real job, I had a lot of little jobs that I can't even mention, but I believe in jobs. Get a job, any job. And I went to work for Bantam Books, which is a major, major publishing house. Paperback publishing house. And I was, very low down. And I looked around me and I thought, this is where I want to be. This is exciting. This is where publishing happens, authors you've heard of. And they would come in and out of the office, and I would be excited to see Norman Mailer and Philip Roth and all these people who would show up. I was reading. And I thought it was the best thing that ever happened. And I stuck it out in publishing for many, many years until movies called. And then I transferred to movies. Very similar in terms of my training. You read, you comment, you decide what you like, and you fight for it. Same in all of the branches. When you fall in love with a piece of material and you want to see it happen, whether it's in a book or in a movie or television or whatever it is.
Wow. So tell us, I know you've worked with some of the major actors out there. Tell us about some of the people that you've worked with.
Well, the best person, not the best, but the person who's very significant in my life is Dolly Parton, because when I had many, many jobs in the movie business, and I was up for a new one, I was between jobs. Sometimes you have a job for a certain amount of time, the company folds or everybody changes or whatever the reason. And she was starting a new company called Sand Dollar. And the company was started by her and her manager, Sandy Gallen, hence Sand Dollar, Sandy Dolly.
Oh, yes.
And the insignia for the company was a sand dollar, which is an actual fish.
Right.
So I had no idea really anything about Dolly. I'm a girl from New Jersey. I'm not a Southerner. I didn't know country music. And I got a little nervous about it, like what's my contribution going to be? But what I learned very quickly was that Dolly is an entrepreneur. And she had many other things going on in her life aside from her music career. She had Dollywood and everything in Tennessee. She was controlling empires.
Yes.
And she wanted to start a movie company with her partner, Sandy. And they needed somebody to run it. And so they approached me. I had an interview with Dolly and Sandy, and who could not fall in love with her? She's Dolly.
Exactly.
I mean, she's just amazing. And and so they hired me because my reputation was as a person who found books that became bestsellers that then became best-selling movies, and that's what they wanted. They didn't really know me. They just knew what
you done.
My resume. And when I was in New York, the main thing that got me a reputation was I found The Shining in manuscript form, and it became a Stanley Kubrick movie.
Yes.
The Shining, and I was the first one to read the manuscript. So when that happens in your life, people know it. You know? So everybody says, well, find me another Shining. Well, there is no other Shining. But you become that person. I got hired for that reason.
Wow.
And so I worked, close. Dolly wasn't there all the time, but when she was there, she lit up the office. She was the sweetest, friendliest, most wonderful person, really. There's nobody like her.
She's just as sweet, I think, as she appears, right? From what you're saying, sounds like a very vivacious, sweet person. So it's really nice to to work with somebody like that. So I know we were going to talk about entertaining, because at one time Hollywood was all about entertaining, because you would meet people through events that you go to. Also, I think that's where a lot of people would make contacts as well, right?
Well, there's still events, but the budget has been scaled down. It used to be every time there was an opening of a movie, there would be a banquet. That is really not true anymore. And that hasn't been true for a while.
Wow.
Certainly the pandemic has scaled that down. But it used to be an event came with an opening of a movie, but it also came with every screening of every movie. You would go to an office and there would be food, and you'd meet the stars and you'd meet the director, and people circulated. Those days are gone, I'm sad to say, because that was really great. And it was a wonderful, say you see a movie for the first time, and the director is there for you to ask questions of, and that was a unique experience. But the big entertainer in my day was somebody very famous. Her name is Sue Mengers. Play was written about her. She was Barbra Streisand's agent. And she worked at a big company called ICM. And she was famous for her parties. And if you went to a Sue Mengers party, it was guaranteed wall-to-wall celebrities. And she was famous for putting people together. It didn't matter whether they knew each other, whether they heard of each other. That was her thing.
Wow.
And she became known for it. So I only went to one of those parties. And even though I worked for Barbra Streisand, but you have to, her list was usually actors. And but I remember going to that party, and there was, I can't even begin to name all of them. It was very exciting. And she was just a charming woman and a character. And she was in a movie herself, profiled in a movie called The Last of Sheila, played by Diane Cannon, who portrayed Sue Mengers, who was kind of a a brassy, loudmouthed woman who's charming and kind of an amazing character. I don't think they exist anymore. And that's
Probably.
why a play was done about her life, because she's so colorful. So, a lot of the color has gone out of Hollywood with the Me Too
Yes.
and with the clamping down.
Yes.
Everybody's getting a little more corporate, really, which is not a good thing.
No, it's not. So I know you said you like to entertain, right? So tell us.
My entertaining is very small scale. I really prefer a small dinner party with 4 or 6.
Right.
That's because I don't have help. I like to do it myself. I like to set a pretty table and get to know my guests. So I really like a small party. But once a year, on New Year's Day, we have a big party for like 60, 70 people. And in California, New Year's Day is warm. I don't know why, but the weather is always beautiful. So we had a big, we have moved since, but we had a big patio and big outdoors. Wow. And I would cook everything for this party with the help of my husband. And people would bring stuff. But for 60, 70 people, it's a lot of food.
Yes.
So the main thing that we did for that party was called Chili for a Crowd. And it was from the Silver Palette cookbook. And it was chili that served 40 people. Wow. And it was so hard to stir that my husband became, because it had sausage in it and meat in it, it was just, anyway, so that became the highlight of this party. Everybody came for the Baum's chili. And we did it for years and years and years. And people loved it because they saw each other once a year. They connect at that party where they say, oh, I haven't seen you for a long time. But I waited for other people to do it. People did not. They didn't do it. And there was I read Dear Amy every day, which is one of the columns in the LA Times.
Yes.
An advice column.
Yes.
And somebody wrote to Amy today and said, Dear Amy, I always entertain and nobody ever invites me back. And what should I do? Should I stop entertaining? And Amy said, if you have a nice house and maybe people feel that they don't have as nice a forum for the entertainment, they may be inhibited and not want to do it. On the other hand, she said, people are not doing it so much. It's a money thing. I don't know the answer because it's so much fun to entertain. It's hard work.
It is. I mean,
I'm at it for days. If I'm entertaining on a Saturday night, I usually start cooking on Thursday.
Yes.
And because I'm big, if it's my 4 or 6, I always have a soup.
Yes.
I always have a main course. I always have a dessert that I make. Very simple stuff. I used to be, when I started out, it was Julia Child, and it was that kind of, we were all into Julia. And then I became more of a cook like my mother, which was simple fare, peasant fare.
Yes.
And I have my favorite cookbooks, and things evolved after Julia because I think everybody got a little less fancy in their, not so many ingredients, so we don't want to cook for 7 hours to make beef bourguignon, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So my favorite thing last year was one of the and I'm a big New York Times cookbook reader or debater. I've books and books and books. I cut out the articles and I paste them in a book.
Right.
And one of the New York Times cooks did something called, what was it? Where you cook on just a platter. Everything's on a sheet.
Oh, okay.
What do you call it? A sheet cooking.
A cookie sheet?
No.
Everything was on your bake.
I wrote it down, so let me tell you what it is.
Okay. Yes.
Sheet pan cooking. So you use the same kind of sheet that you would make cookies on.
Right, like a cookie sheet.
You put chicken and shallots and rockwool, whatever your things are. And it all gets put on the one sheet, goes in the oven, and 40 minutes later, you have a beautiful dinner.
Yes.
That's what I'm cooking now. It's easy, simple, no fuss, and I love that. So I recommend that to anybody who doesn't want to be in the kitchen for, 100 hours. And then I have my soups, which is sort of my signature thing.
Mhm.
And I don't invent stuff. I use cookbooks all the time.
Uh-huh.
I love Craig Claiborne still, who is like an old-timey guy.
Yes.
I love Nigella Lawson
Yes.
and Ina Garten and
Uh-huh.
but my favorite is somebody gave it to me for a birthday. It's a thick New York Times cookbook, and it's got all the recipes for the past 20 years.
Uh-huh.
A lot of them are Craig Claiborne and everybody else. And then
It was in the New York Times.
And the text will be, well, we studied Kokovan, and this is the one we came up with, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And it's wonderful, except that you can't lift it. It's such a heavy cookbook.
Yeah.
but I love that cookbook, and I read them for amusement. I just like reading cookbooks.
Yes, they are interesting. I know that people do not just use cookbooks to cook with. They're interesting reads also. A lot of people, it's interesting to read also. But that's so true what you're saying about cooking simple fare, because when you're entertaining, you want to spend time with your guests. You don't want to spend all your time in the kitchen and then be all stressed out. So that's such a perfect idea of doing.
Well, what I will do everything in the morning.
Uh-huh.
I make a practice of I don't do anything that has to be last minute. I just won't, because I think you don't leave your guests.
Right.
So, I've been to people's houses where they're gone for a half an hour. Where's the host? Gone. And some people bring people into the kitchen.
Yes.
And some people don't. I don't like people around me when I'm cooking. I get too distracted.
Right.
So I do everything in the morning.
Uh-huh.
I refrigerate it, which probably takes some of the flavor away, but nobody notices.
Uh-huh.
And I take everything out at 5 o'clock to get to be room temperature, and I do that with the desserts and the main course, everything. I do that with everything, and so I am there. You don't know that I'm not there. So that's my style, and that kind of organization, it requires organization. You have to know what you're doing. And that's what being a producer is. We as a group are very organized people. Everything has to be planned. You can't leave anything to chance. And of course you do, because you can't help it. But organization is sort of the first thing I teach.
Right.
I teach at USC producing class, and that's what I try to get the kids to be more organized than that they're interested in being. At 20 years old, they're not.
Yes.
But that's, entertaining is a good use of those skills for me.
Exactly. Definitely. Well, we're almost out of time, so I want you to definitely tell people. So tell us the title of the book, and then
the title of the book is called Creative Producing, and it's really anybody who wants to know about Hollywood, the ins and the outs, how to work here, how to learn about what stars do, how a movie gets made from beginning to end, all the fun stuff that people are curious about. And it will be published by Skyhorse October 3rd. And I'm really excited about it. It's also my life. It's part memoir and part how-to. So it's each time I tell a story, like my publishing background, it's in there. So it tells young people, okay, you don't just get a job working for Dolly Parton right off the bat. You pay dues here, 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 and here. This is what you have to do. Exactly. So it's really a book at how to work in the real world. So I think it's not just for movie people. I think it's for everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's a very interesting read. I could think of so many people that would be interested, not just people that want to work in Hollywood, be people that are interested in Hollywood or interested in creative careers or writing. A lot. I could see how a lot of people would be so interested in the book. So it will be published by Skyhorse, you said?
Skyhorse is the publishing company. It's a division of Skyhorse, and it's a small publisher. And they are very excited about it. And we are starting the promotion, and I can give people, PDFs, but I can't, the book won't be available till September.
Yes.
So people can pre-order the book.
That's what I was going to say. And so
Yeah.
people can just pre-order it on Amazon, or do they have to
Any
go to the website?
any site, Barnes and Noble, Amazon. It's, just look up creative producing Carol Baum and it comes up. And it tells
Okay.
you how to pre-order it.
Mhm.
And that's just started. We've just begun that thing, and we're sending out press releases, and it's really just the beginning of this promotional tour, which is
Wow.
fascinating.
It is. It's fascinating and it's exciting. So much success to you, Carol. It's very exciting, and the book sounds very, very interesting. So I can't wait to see it. Also, do you have a website or something?
I have a website. It's my name, and it tells you everything about my career and all the movies that I produce. I've produced 34 movies, so it's all there.
Oh,
And
great.
yeah, it's pretty complete.
Great.
So,
That's great. I'll put that, we'll probably have the link on my website for the MariaLiberatiShow.com.
okay, I'll give you all the information so you get all the spelling right.
Yes.
And the
You can
website right.
definitely email that to me so I can have that put up on my website. Well, thanks so much for being here, Carol. And who knows, maybe on your next project, you'll reach out and we'll have you on again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Maria Liberati Show, and thanks to my producer, Britton Roselle, and this week's special guest, Carol Baum. And you can find me on marialiberati.com and on Facebook at Chef Maria Liberati, on Pinterest at Maria Liberati, on Instagram at Maria Liberati, on Twitter at Maria Liberati. The new channel on YouTube for the podcast, it's the Maria Liberati Show. My Roku channel, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking by Maria Liberati. The book series, the Gourmand World Award-winning book series, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking. You can find that at artoflivingprimamedia.com or on Amazon or Kindle or anywhere books are sold. And until next time, peace, love, and pasta.